Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The week on General Hospital has been building to an intense Friday episode that promises shocking confrontations, emotional discoveries, and life-changing decisions. As the residents of Port Charles wake up to a new day, the tension in the air is impossible to ignore, with unresolved rivalries and secrets threatening to spill out at any moment. Friday's episode on October 3, 2025, is designed to keep viewers glued to the screen, as every character seems to find themselves pushed into situations where choices cannot be avoided, no matter how painful they might be. The drama begins with Carly Corinthos once again caught in the middle of family conflict. Carly has spent years protecting her loved ones and doing whatever she feels is necessary, but lately the burden on her shoulders has become overwhelming. Her relationship with Sonny has gone through cycles of love, betrayal, and reconciliation, yet Friday's episode places her squarely in a position where she has to decide whether Sonny's dangerous lifestyle is something she can tolerate any longer. With Jason no longer around to act as a buffer and advisor, Carly must face the harsh truth: if she continues to stand by Sonny, she risks dragging her family into a darker spiral than ever before. Carly and Sonny share an emotional exchange that reminds longtime fans of their undeniable connection, but at the same time underscores how fractured things have become. Viewers will see the push and pull between passion and exhaustion, loyalty and self-preservation, as Carly questions whether she can keep sacrificing her peace of mind for a man who refuses to change. Meanwhile, Nina Reeves finds herself once again on the defensive. Her actions from the past, particularly her betrayal involving the SEC scandal and her constant clashes with Carly, still hang over her. Friday's episode places Nina in a confrontation that cuts to the core of who she is. She has fought for respect, for love, and for her place in Willow and Wiley's lives, but no matter what she does, she can't seem to erase the shadow of her mistakes. On October 3, Nina tries to present herself as someone who has turned over a new leaf, but she runs into hostility from multiple directions, making her question whether her redemption is even possible. A key moment arises when Nina attempts to reason with Willow, who remains cautious and skeptical. While Nina longs for acceptance and reconciliation, Willow cannot simply forget the pain that Nina has caused. The conversation becomes heated, and although Nina makes progress in showing her sincerity, Willow leaves her with a stern warning: trust must be earned, and empty promises will no longer suffice. Another major storyline unfolding on Friday centers around Michael Corinthos. Michael has been juggling his roles as a father, husband, and leader within his family's business empire, yet the weight of all these responsibilities is taking a toll. In the October 3 episode, Michael confronts a challenge that threatens both his family and the stability of ELQ. With competitors circling and betrayal from within, Michael is forced to make a strategic decision that could either secure the company's future or cause devastating fallout. His conversations with Ned and Brooke Lynn reveal the generational tensions that still exist within the Quartermaine family, and fans will see the familiar clash of ambition versus loyalty play out once again. Michael is determined to protect what's his, but there's an underlying sense of foreboding that no matter how carefully he plans, unexpected consequences are just around the corner. Elsewhere in Port Charles, Anna Devane and Valentine Cassidy's complicated relationship continues to shift. Friday's episode shows the aftermath of Valentine's recent choices, which have left Anna both heartbroken and suspicious. While there is still undeniable chemistry between them, Anna's instincts tell her not to trust him fully, and that gut feeling becomes more pronounced when she receives new information that casts doubt on his recent claims. Anna's sharp investigative mind drives her to dig deeper, even if it means uncovering truths she might not be ready to face. Valentine, for his part, tries to reassure her that his loyalty lies with her, but his evasiveness only increases her doubts. Their storyline on October 3 teeters on the edge of romance and betrayal, leaving fans to wonder whether these two will ever be able to truly trust one another. At the hospital, Hamilton Finn faces a crisis that puts his medical skills and emotional strength to the test. Finn has struggled with personal demons in the past, but he has always relied on his work to ground him. On Friday, a medical emergency involving a young patient forces Finn to dig deep and confront his own insecurities. The case is not only medically challenging but also emotionally charged, reminding Finn of losses he has endured before. Elizabeth Baldwin stands by his side, offering both professional support and personal comfort. Their scenes together highlight the closeness that has developed between them, though unspoken tension lingers. Elizabeth sees how much pressure Finn puts on himself, and while she admires his dedication, she worries about the toll it is taking. Their interactions suggest that their relationship could soon shift in unexpected directions, whether toward a deeper romantic bond or a painful fracture. Elsewhere, Trina Robinson finds herself caught between her future and her past. She has been building a life for herself, pursuing her studies and trying to maintain stability, but unresolved feelings for Spencer Cassadine remain. On October 3rd, Trina has a heartfelt conversation with Jocelyn Jacks about moving forward versus holding on to memories that continue to haunt her. The two young women discuss love, loss, and what it means to truly let go, and it becomes clear that Trina's heart still hasn't fully healed from losing Spencer. Viewers can expect emotional scenes as Trina questions whether she will ever be able to love someone new without feeling like she is betraying the memory of what she once had. Her vulnerability adds depth to the episode, showcasing the struggles of a young woman trying to define her path in a world that feels both promising and uncertain. Meanwhile, Curtis Ashford continues to adjust to his life after tragedy. His journey of recovery has been filled with challenges, but Curtis refuses to give up. Friday's episode depicts Curtis facing both physical and emotional hurdles, with Portia by his side. Their bond is tested as Curtis grapples with frustration and anger at the limitations he faces, but Portia's unwavering support gives him the strength to push forward. Their scenes underscore the importance of resilience and love in the face of hardship, reminding viewers that healing is a process that takes time and patience.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The humid air of Port Charles clung to everything, a thick, invisible blanket that made even the simplest movements feel laborious. Inside the dimly lit confines of his penthouse, Sonny Corinthos stood perfectly still, a solitary figure silhouetted against the panoramic window that overlooked the city. The skyline, usually a tapestry of twinkling lights and bustling life, was muted today, blurred by a fine, persistent drizzle that beaded on the glass. In his hand, a heavy crystal tumbler held 2 fingers of amber liquid, untouched. The ice had long since melted, the drink diluted and forgotten. His focus was turned entirely inward, a maelstrom of conflicting duties and dangerous affections. The phone call from Dex Heller an hour earlier played on a loop in his mind. The information was solid, sourced from the shadows where Dex still operated with a cold, efficient loyalty that Sonny both relied upon and resented. A shipment. Pikeman. The old warehouse on the West Piers. A name, new but rapidly gaining infamy, was attached to the operation, Silas Vandal. It was an opportunity, a chance to strike a decisive blow, to send a message that the Corinthos organization, though led by a man trying to walk a straighter path, was not to be trifled with. The old Sonny, the one who ruled these streets with a combination of fear and fierce loyalty, would have already been in his car, a plan of brutal efficiency forming behind his eyes. But that Sonny was fighting for control with a new one, a man in love, a man who had promised. A promise made in the soft light of the morning, tangled in bedsheets, with Carly's head on his chest. A promise of transparency, of partnership, of leaving the bloody, nocturnal wars of his past behind them. To move against Pikeman now, without telling her, would be to shatter that fragile, hard-won trust. It would be a return to the secrets and the lies that had defined so much of their tumultuous history. He could still feel the ghost of her kiss on his lips, the earnestness in her eyes as she'd made him swear to let her in, to not shoulder the darkness alone. A sharp knock on the penthouse door shattered his reverie. He didn't need to ask who it was, the rhythm was familiar. "It's open," he called, his voice a low rumble. The door swung open and Jason Morgan stepped inside, his presence immediately altering the room's atmosphere. Dressed in a dark leather jacket and jeans, his expression was its usual granite mask, but his eyes were alive, sharp with purpose. He carried the night's tension in the set of his shoulders. "Sonny," Jason said by way of greeting, his gaze sweeping the room out of habit before settling on his friend. "Jason." Sonny finally turned from the window, placing the forgotten drink on a side table. "You got my message." "I did. Dex's intel checks out. The shipment is real. Vandal will be there himself to oversee it. He's arrogant. Thinks the Pikeman name is a shield." Jason's words were clipped, factual. "A military briefing. We have a narrow window. We need to move now if we're going to intercept. Sunny nodded slowly, his jaw tight. How many men? Enough. We can contain it, make it clean. A message, not a massacre. Jason paused, his head tilting slightly as he studied Sunny. He saw the hesitation, the internal conflict that was so uncharacteristic of the man he had followed into hell a dozen times over. What's the problem? Carly, Sunny said, the name a sigh. He ran a hand over his face. I promised her, Jason. No more secrets. No more going to war without her knowing. Jason's expression didn't change, but a flicker of understanding passed through his eyes. He had witnessed the entire, chaotic arc of Sunny and Carly's relationship. He knew the weight of that promise. Telling her now risks the operation. You know how she is. She'll want to be involved. She'll worry. It could compromise timing, or worse, she could try to follow you. I know, Sunny growled, frustration evident. But keeping it from her, if she finds out after the fact, the fallout will be worse. She'll see it as a betrayal. And she'd be right. This is business, Sunny. This is about protecting what's yours. That includes her. Taking out Vandal and crippling this pikeman operation makes Port Charles safer for everyone. For her. Jason's logic was impeccable, forged in the fire of countless similar situations. Sometimes, protection means doing what needs to be done, even if it's not what's asked. The two men stood in silence, the ghost of Carly Spencer hovering between them. For Sunny, it was a choice between two definitions of love, one that was open and honest, and one that was protective and, by its very nature, secretive. The old ways versus the new promise. The city outside, with its scheming and its violence, was pressing in, demanding the return of the man it knew. The drizzle against the window seemed to whisper the same question over and over, who are you going to be? Across town, in the sleek, modern office of Aurora Media, the atmosphere was one of a different kind of tension. Nina Reeves sat behind her expansive glass desk, her posture rigid, her manicured fingers steepled beneath her chin. Opposite her, Hamilton Finn looked deeply uncomfortable, shifting in his seat as if he wished the floor would swallow him whole. I appreciate you coming, Dr. Finn, Nina began, her voice a carefully modulated blend of warmth and authority. I know you're a busy man. Of course, Nina. What can I do for you? Finn asked, though a sinking feeling in his gut told him he already knew. It's about my daughter, Nina said, her eyes softening with a practiced maternal concern. About Violet. I know the custody arrangement with Elizabeth has been stable. For now. But I can't help but feel that a child needs her mother. Her real mother. Finn's heart hammered against his ribs. Nina, we've been over this. The court. The court based its decision on the circumstances at the time, Nina interrupted smoothly. Circumstances change. People change. I am in a much more stable place now. My marriage to Valentine is strong. My career is thriving. I can offer Violet a life of security, of opportunity. She would want for nothing. She wants for nothing now, Finn said, his voice tight with a defensive edge. She's happy. She's loved. Elizabeth is, she's her mother in every way that matters. Does every way that matters include biology? Nina's question was a silken dart aimed perfectly at his deepest insecurity. I am her blood, Hamilton. That is a connection that cannot be replicated, no matter how good a job Elizabeth is doing. I let her go once because I was broken, because I wasn't strong enough to fight. I am strong enough now. Finn felt a cold dread creeping up his spine. This wasn't the grief-stricken, erratic Nina of the past. This was a calculated, determined woman with vast resources and a newfound, steely resolve. He saw it in her eyes, this was no longer a request. It was a declaration of war. Nina, please, he pleaded, leaning forward. Don't do this. You'll only upset Violet. You'll put her in the middle of a fight she doesn't understand. Is that what's best for her? What's best for her is to be with her mother, Nina stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. I'm not asking for your permission, Hamilton. I'm informing you of my intentions. My lawyers will be in touch. I suggest you and Elizabeth prepare yourselves. She gave him a small, tight smile that didn't reach her eyes, effectively dismissing him. Finn stood up, his legs feeling like lead. He walked out of the office in a daze, the sound of the door clicking shut behind him sounding like the cocking of a gun. The peaceful life he and Elizabeth had built, the fragile happiness they had carved out with Violet, was about to be shattered. Nina's campaign had begun. The news traveled through the hospital grapevine with viral speed. By the time Finn, looking pale and shaken, returned to the emergency room floor, Elizabeth Baldwin had already heard whispers. She found him in the on-call room, staring blankly at a cup of cold coffee. "Finn," she said softly, closing the door behind her. "What is it? What did Nina want?" He looked up, his eyes full of a helpless anguish that made her heart clench. "Liz," he whispered, his voice cracking. "She's going to sue us for custody. She's not backing down. She's coming for Violet." Elizabeth froze, the air rushing from her lungs as if she'd been punched. She had feared this, had seen the possessive look in Nina's eyes growing stronger over recent months, but she had hoped reason, or compassion for Violet's well-being, would prevail. Clearly, she had been naive. "No," she breathed, sinking onto the couch beside him. "She can't. The court, our home is stable. She's happy here. She says circumstances have changed," Finn relayed numbly. "She says she's stable now. Strong. She has Valentine, her money, her company. She says a child needs her real mother." The words real mother felt like a physical blow to Elizabeth. She had raised Violet, loved her, nursed her through fevers, soothed her nightmares, helped her with her homework. She was the one Violet called Mom. To have that reduced, invalidated by the cold, hard fact of biology, was a pain so profound it left her momentarily speechless. "What are we going to do?" she finally asked, her voice small and frightened. Finn reached for her hand, his own trembling. "We fight, Liz. We fight with everything we have. We're a family. She can't just take that away." But the fear in his eyes mirrored her own. They both knew Nina's resources were virtually limitless. They were up against a fortress, and all they had was the truth of their love. In a court of law, against a determined and wealthy adversary, they were terrifyingly unsure if that would be enough. The late afternoon sun cast long, dramatic shadows across the Quartermaine mansion's drawing room, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air. Tracy Quartermaine, having returned to Port Charles with her typical whirlwind energy, held court from a velvet wingback chair. She was holding a small, ornate box, its polished wood gleaming. "I'm not getting any younger, despite my best efforts and a truly excellent dermatologist," Tracy announced, her voice cutting through the room's formality. She looked at Brooklyn and Chase, who were seated together on a sofa, their hands intertwined. "And I've decided it's high time certain family heirlooms stopped gathering dust in a vault and started being worn by the future of this family." She opened the box. Nestled inside on a bed of black velvet was a breathtaking diamond necklace. The central stone was a large, perfect emerald-cut diamond, surrounded by a cascade of smaller, baguette-cut stones. It was elegant, timeless, and undoubtedly worth a fortune. Brooklyn's breath caught in her throat. "Aunt Tracy, it's stunning." "It was your grandmother's," Tracy said, a rare note of genuine sentiment in her voice. "Lila always had impeccable taste. She would have wanted you to have it, Brooklyn. Especially now, as you're building a life, a career, a family with this one." She gestured with her chin toward Chase. Chase smiled, squeezing Brooklyn's hand. "It's beautiful, Tracy." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Tracy said, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Heirlooms like this come with responsibility. They're a reminder of where you come from and a promise for where you're going. They're meant to be cherished, protected, and passed on." Her gaze lingered on Brooklyn's midsection for a fraction of a second, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken hopes for grandchildren that hung in the air. The moment was warm, familial, a rare island of peace in the turbulent Quatermain Sea. But the peace was fragile, built on a foundation of secrets. As Tracy carefully closed the box and handed it to a beaming Brooke Lynn, neither she nor Chase could know that their own carefully guarded truth was, at that very moment, being threatened with exposure. Down in the PCPD interrogation room, the air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and desperation. Detective Harrison Chase's father, Commissioner Sean Dunley, was leaning over a table, his face a mask of cold, implacable authority. Across from him sat a weaselly-looking man named Leo, a small-time informant with a long sheet of petty crimes. "I'm losing my patience, Leo." Sean's voice was low and dangerous, devoid of its usual bureaucratic calm. "You were seen. We have you on camera. Now, you can either tell me who hired you to plant that listening device in my office, or I can charge you with espionage, trespassing on government property, and about a dozen other things that will ensure you never see the outside of a prison yard again. Your choice." Leo squirmed, sweat beading on his upper lip. "I don't know names, man. I swear." It was a drop. A blind drop. Money in a locker, instructions in another. "I never saw anyone." "I don't believe you," Sean said flatly. "You're a cockroach, Leo. You scuttle around in the dark and you see things. You know things. And right now, the only thing standing between you and a 20-year sentence is a name." He slammed his hand on the table, making Leo jump. "Who was it?" Terrified, Leo's resolve broke. All right. It was a woman. Classy. Blonde. Scary eyes. She paid me $5,000 up front. Said she needed a way to keep tabs on the PCPD's movements. Specifically, yours." Sean's eyes narrowed. A classy, blonde woman with scary eyes who had an interest in the police commissioner's business. The description was vague, but it fit a certain type that was all too common in Port Charles, the wealthy, manipulative socialite who played games with real-world consequences. "What else?" Sean pressed. "What did she want to know?" "She was real interested in your son," Leo babbled, eager to trade information for leniency. The detective asked if I knew anything about him. About his wife. The singer. She was obsessed with them. Wanted to know everything, their schedules, their arguments, if they were having money troubles, anything. A cold knot tightened in Sean's stomach. This wasn't just about him. This was about Harrison. And Brooke Lynn. Someone was targeting his family. The warm, generous gift of a family heirloom happening just a few miles away felt a world apart from the grim reality of this interrogation room. Someone was watching his son, digging for vulnerabilities. And Sean Dunley, a man who had built his career on control and order, suddenly felt a terrifying loss of both. As dusk began to settle over Port Charles, the city's rhythm shifted. The daytime citizens retreated to their homes, and the nocturnal players began to stir. At the warehouse on the West Piers, the stage was being set for violence. Sonny and Jason moved through the shadows like ghosts, a small team of hand-picked men flanking them. The cavernous space was filled with the echoes of dripping water and the distant groan of ships. Crates were stacked high, creating a labyrinth of potential ambushes. The air smelled of salt, rust, and impending rain. From a catwalk high above, they watched as Silas Vandal, a tall, gaunt man with a cruel mouth, directed his crew. The shipment, a cache of advanced, untraceable firearms, was being unloaded from a hidden compartment in a shipping container. "There," Jason murmured, pointing to a specific crate being handled with extra care. "That's the primary target. The new model. Pikeman's latest innovation." Sonny nodded, his face a mask of grim determination. The choice had been made. He hadn't called Carly. The promise was broken, sacrificed on the altar of what he saw as necessity. The guilt was a lead weight in his stomach, but it was now secondary to the task at hand. He was the old Sonny in this moment, the warlord, and the city demanded his particular brand of justice. He gave the signal. Chaos erupted. The Corinthos men swarmed from the shadows, their movements precise and brutal. Gunfire echoed, sharp and deafening in the enclosed space. Vandal's men, caught by surprise, scrambled for cover, returning fire in wild, panicked bursts. Sunny and Jason moved as a single unit, a force of nature honed by decades of partnership. They flanked the main group, cutting off Vandal's retreat. Sunny's focus was absolute, his movements economical and deadly. He saw one of his men go down, clutching his leg, and his rage intensified. This was the cost of his world. This was the blood price. Vandal, realizing the tide had turned, made a break for a rear exit, two of his bodyguards covering him. Jason took down one guard with a clean shot to the shoulder, while Sunny engaged the other in a vicious hand-to-hand struggle. It was short, brutal, and ended with the bodyguard unconscious on the concrete floor. Sunny looked up, his eyes locking with Vandal's just as the man reached the door. For a split second, they understood each other completely. This was not over. Then Vandal was gone, vanishing into the rainy night. The firefight was over almost as quickly as it had begun. Vandal's men were subdued, disarmed, and zip-tied. The warehouse was secure. The shipment was theirs. Jason came to stand beside Sunny, his breathing even, his expression unchanged. He got away. For now, Sunny said, his voice gravelly with adrenaline and fatigue. He looked around at the scene, the wounded, the captured, the spoils of a small war. He had won. He had protected his territory. But as he pulled out his phone and saw the screen was dark, no missed calls from Carly, the victory felt hollow, tainted by the lie of a mission he now had to carry home. Meanwhile, at the Metro Court Hotel, the atmosphere was one of cloying sophistication. An art gallery opening was in full swing, the air filled with the murmur of polite conversation and the clinking of champagne flutes. Nina Reeves, having changed into a stunning, floor-length gown, held onto Valentine Cassidy's arm, a picture of marital and professional bliss. She moved through the crowd, air-kissing cheeks and accepting compliments on the exhibition. Her eyes, however, were constantly scanning, hunting. They found their target near a large, abstract sculpture, Carly Spencer, who was talking with Drew and Laura Collins. Carly looked radiant, laughing at something Drew said, completely unaware of the storm clouds gathering around so many of her loved ones. Nina felt a familiar, acidic jealousy twist in her gut. Carly always seemed to have it all, the love, the loyalty, the unshakable confidence. Even now, with Sunny undoubtedly embroiled in some sordid underworld skirmish, she stood there, glowing. Nina's smile tightened. She had set her own plans in motion today, plans that would bring chaos to Elizabeth and Finn, and by extension, cause ripples of pain for Carly, who counted Elizabeth as a friend. It was a petty vengeance, perhaps, but it was power. It was control. She excused herself from Valentine and glided through the crowd, stopping a few feet from Carly's group. Her eyes met Carly's. For a long, silent moment, the two women just looked at each other, the years of bitterness and betrayal passing between them in a single, loaded glance. Nina's gaze was a challenge, a promise of battles to come. Carly's, in return, was one of pure, unadulterated defiance. Nina offered a small, cold smile before turning away, leaving Carly with a sense of foreboding that cut through the evening's glamour. Something was wrong. She could feel it. She pulled out her phone to text Sunny, a simple hope you're having a quiet night. Love you. The message was sent, but it hung in the digital ether, unanswered. The silence from his end felt louder than any gunshot in a warehouse. Back at the PCPD, Sean Dunley stood in his office, staring at the city skyline. The information from the informant, Leo, was a bomb waiting to go off. A woman was targeting his son. The list of classy, blonde, scary-eyed women in Port Charles with a grudge against the Dunley/Chase family was unfortunately not short. He thought of Tracy Quartermaine and her sharp tongue. He thought of Nina Reeves and her bottomless well of resentment. He thought of a dozen other possibilities. He picked up his phone, his finger hovering over his son's contact. He needed to warn him. But what would he say? Son, I have reason to believe a mysterious blonde woman is spying on you and your wife, digging for dirt. Be careful. It sounded paranoid. It would frighten them unnecessarily, especially Brooke Lynn, who was finally finding her footing after so many struggles. He put the phone down. For now, he would keep this close. He would investigate quietly, use his own resources. He would become the shadow that watched the shadow. The protector. It was a lonely vigil, but it was his duty. The first, cold drops of the promised rain began to streak his window, tracing paths through the